Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I'm seeing green and I can see myself moving and shaking. Let's check my volume before we go, because sometimes my volume drops on me and then I get very angry and want to break stuff. Okay, good. Everything's up. First, hello everyone. I want to welcome all my new subscribers. I have a few new ones, of course. I want to thank all the people who donate on Patreon. I want to thank all the people who donate on Super Cash. All of you guys are immensely appreciated, and I thank you for supporting the content. Thing I want to talk about today has to do with releasing the memo. Now, for those who don't know what I'm talking about here, there's a memo by Representative Nunes that Republicans have been screaming to high heaven for the past several weeks, saying that this memo clears Donald Trump. It shows corruption, I guess you can say, in the intelligence community itself. It shows a bias against Trump in favor of Clinton. And in showing this bias, they're saying that it will be clear as day, that the sky will open up, everybody will say there's nothing else to see here, and they would go home. That this will completely dispel this thing of Russian interference. Now, that's somewhat of a big claim. The catch is, though, that Democrats have assiduously stuck with this thing of Trump and Russia, and the media has fell in line right behind it, because at the end of the day, it's profitable to put this idea that Donald Trump somehow colluded with Russia in order to hack the election, even though in no way have they shown that to be true, despite screaming about it for a year and a half. They put out the Steele dossier, this uncorroborated thing which amounted to, I guess, the most salacious item in the dossier being Donald Trump paid a prostitute to pee on a bed that Obama slept in because he hated Obama that much. If you're going to put something like this out, then you have to allow the president a bit of latitude to try to clear his name. And this is coming from somebody who don't like Donald Trump. But I have to be honest, I dislike using this Russia thing even more. I find it to be that much more disingenuous and dishonest. They're trying to obfuscate from the fact that they failed to reality shows. And the way that they try to obfuscate from this is to talk about any and everything else except for the reasons that they failed. So Trump and Russia is one of those big issues. Now, the fact that they've said all of this stuff about Trump and Russia, if there's any chance at all that this thing clears his name, Republicans need to release the documents. And it seems to be that the Republicans are releasing this document, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has said that he's also going to release this memo. Whether this memo does what they say it's going to do is a completely separate thing. It may not do any of that. It may not get any inch of the way to doing it. But at the very least, if you've backed yourself into a corner saying that this document does this, then you have to release that particular document. I'm going to make the case that whatever you want to think of Republicans and them being hacks, that you have to accept both to some degree are being hacks. And is there any credibility at all to this idea that the FBI was being politicized? Now, a story came out today showing that the FBI expressed grave concerns over releasing this memo. They was like, oh, we're uncomfortable releasing this memo. It's like, hey, FBI, should they release a memo showing that there may have been corruption in the same FBI? No, we don't think you should release that. Yeah, national security. There are national security concerns about that. We don't think you should release that information showing that we might have been corrupt in favor of one of the other candidates, and that the FBI itself may have been a politicized body. This is a rather big deal, though. I mean, if this memo is doing what they say it's doing, then the FBI and then the intelligence services were being politicized in the Obama administration. And whatever you want to think of it, whether you think it's true, false, anywhere in between, that is a big fucking deal. That is a massive deal. There are investigations right now going on into the FBI. One is done by the Republican Party, but another one is done by the Inspector General, asking difficult questions that they're having a hard time answering, like, hey, why did you guys sit on the Anthony Weiner stuff for so long? I mean, when you found out that there were additional emails on his computer, why did you sit on it for so long? And is it possible that you guys were sitting on it because you wanted to get past the election? Meaning you thought that you could suppress this information until they were clear of the election. But the moment information started coming out about some of the people who were in the administration that seemed to have been giving a pass to Hillary Clinton, but at the same token going after Donald Trump, well, it puts a bit of a fire under the FBI to come out to show that the FBI is not being a politicized organization. The thing is, the Republicans aren't crazy on this. They have a dog in the hunt. Yes, they have a politicized dog in the hunt. That's true. But so does the FBI. The FBI, just like any other, police organization, in no way is want to release information showing that they themselves were being corrupted or they themselves were being politicized. And I have to be honest. Looking at this, understanding that the people in this are political actors, so fair enough. But when I look at this, I got to be honest, this looks bad to me. It looks as if the FBI was being used as a political body. And I'm going to make my argument. So, the first thing I'm going to show is this part, because I love this. I love the way they express this. FBI expresses grave concerns over Republicans' memo's accuracy. And again, this question is pretty straightforward. Does the FBI have a dog in the hunt on this? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. These are not just people who have their heads down and at the job doing a desk. Even in Comey's testimony by itself, if you take nothing else, Comey getting up there saying, well, look, I was bothered by this idea that I had to fold my language into sounding like Hillary Clinton's campaign. This was not a criminal matter. This was a criminal investigation. She could have been perp-walked. So it's a little bit weird for Comey to have to even say that. Why does Comey feel that he has to say, why does he have to change the language in the way that he's describing this if this wasn't being politicized? Well, it was being politicized. And let's be honest. Let's be honest on the second front. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, appointed Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State. Am I to believe that the person who's ahead of that investigation, the Justice Department, Loretta Lynch, and yes, Comey was running it, but at the end of the day, the person who had the last and final say in the matter was going to be Loretta Lynch. Am I to believe that she doesn't know that the president's will on this is to not have the person he chose as the Secretary of State get convicted? Am I honestly going to believe that when Bill Clinton meets up with Loretta Lynch and there's this random meeting on the tarmac, that they were just talking about their grandkids and not, oh my God, are you going to lock my wife up? Are you going to lock my wife up? Let's take a look at the story. So the FBI expresses grave concerns over releasing information that may show or may accuse the FBI of being corrupt. The FBI said on Wednesday it had grave concerns about the accuracy of a top-secret House Intelligence Committee memo alleging anti-Trump bias within the Justice Department, challenging President Donald Trump's pledge to release it. The rare public rebuke by the nation's top law enforcement agency came hours after the White House Chief of Staff John Kelly said he expected the memo to be made public pretty quick. The FBI was provided with a limited opportunity to review the memo the day before the committee voted to release it, the FBI said in a statement. As expressed during our initial review, we have great concerns about the material omissions of facts that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. The FBI declined to say if Christopher Wray approved that statement. Trump named Wray to head the Federal Bureau of Investigation after firing Comey in late May. Now, this memo has become somewhat of a lightning rod, but you can understand why. The memo is saying this is going to clear Trump's name. This is what they're saying. This is what the Republicans in their wildest dreams are making the argument about. Democrats are saying, no, they're just trying to cut this information a particular way, and this memo doesn't tell everything. The Justice Department is saying, we don't even want this out. We don't even want this released. Here's the problem, though. You have several people who are in the FBI that had a dog in the hunt. And this is problematic on two fronts. So let's go with McCabe first. So McCabe is about to step down. And apparently the reason he's stepping down is because there is going to be an Attorney General or Inspector General's report that is not going to look too favorably on McCabe at all in this. And so he is stepping down. Now, this is the guy whose wife got $500,000 by a Clinton acolyte, Terry McAuliffe's wife, to run in a race that she lost. And in getting that money, the question becomes, wait a minute, is that a bribe? You're working on a case, and your wife is getting money from the political opponent of the person or the target of the investigation that you're working on. That doesn't seem a little weird? Like, that doesn't seem one of those things that, hey, maybe I should recuse myself. My wife is literally taking money. It seems like that there's an appearance of impropriety here at the very least. My wife is taking a large sum of money from somebody who's the political opponent. Who's a political opponent, or the political opponent is essentially the target of the investigation I myself am involved in. That's the first point. That's somewhat of a big deal, and that's somewhat problematic. This is Reuters, I believe. The Guardian. FBI Director Andrew McCabe steps down early. Andrew McCabe, the Deputy Director of the FBI, stepped down on Monday in a widely anticipated move that nevertheless reflected a further deterioration in relations between the White House and authorities investigating Donald Trump's Russian ties. The move came after months of attacks on McCabe by the president, who implied that McCabe had been compromised by a political donation made in 2015 to McCabe's wife. Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, sought to distance the administration from McCabe's departure. "We've seen on numerous reports, as all of you have," she said. "I can tell you none of the decision was made by anyone in the White House." Sanders added, "We don't have any specific comments, and I would refer you to the FBI for any specifics on things taking place today." She insisted that Trump stands by his previous comments about McCabe, but was not part of the decision-making process. "The president has full confidence in the FBI, Christopher Wray," she added, "and has put the decision at the FBI's hands." Now, come on, this is somewhat laughable. Certainly, this would be laughable in both cases, though. Can we not pretend that if the person who's appointed by the President of the United States doesn't in any way know what the will of the President of the United States is? Like, come on. If this was true in the last administration, it's also going to be true in this administration. Let's keep going. Let's see. McCabe became acting director of the FBI in 2017 after Trump fired James Comey, who was only 4 years into a nominal 10-year term. McCabe soon found himself under attack by Trump, who tweeted in July that McCabe ought to have been fired because of his wife, Jill McCabe, who received money for the Senate state race from Hillary Clinton and her representatives. McCabe campaigns received money during the race from the political group tied to Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a longtime Clinton supporter. "The wife got $500,000 from Terry," Trump said recently, criticizing the donation. Terry is Hillary. Trump has a way with words. Like, he sound bites it like nobody's business. That's his thing, man. Branding. Terry's Hillary. Terry's Hillary. Straightforward, to the point. There's no hedge or anything else involved. Terry's Hillary. The thing is, though, he has a point. Whether you want to say that he has something to do with influencing this investigation is kind of besides the point. At the very least, there's a tie there. That's a tether there. There's a massive appearance of impropriety built into this process. Let's keep going. Comey himself. Someone has to explain to me how Comey can end an investigation without even talking to Hillary Clinton, meaning he had it written up an end to the investigation before even having a conversation with the subject of the investigation. That seems pretty fucking bizarre to me. And I have to believe that if there was anybody else, that person would be sitting under a prison right now. Not even for the Clinton Foundation stuff. They weren't even looking at the Clinton Foundation stuff. Just purely from this email thing. And let's go into the email thing, because that's actually pretty fucking interesting also. So, this is... Alright, so there are two parts to this. So the first part is McCabe. Justice Department investigating McCabe's handling of the Clinton email probe. It's believed that the reason why McCabe stepped down was because of the report that was going to come out, essentially lambasting him for his failures in that probe. And then the question becomes, well, were those actual failures? The man's wife got $500,000. Is it possible that what were failures were essentially political corruption or bribery? taking place in this organization. The Justice Department's internal watchdog has been investigating why ex-FBI Director Andrew McCabe apparently sat on his hands for about 3 weeks after Hillary Clinton's emails were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop, a new report said Tuesday. Inspector General Michael Howitz wants to know why some at the top FBI officials appeared less than enthusiastic about probing the emails, which were sent by top Clinton aide Uma Abedin, Weiner's long-suffering wife. The Washington Post reported. Long-suffering is an understatement. Carlos Danger. Carlos Danger. This is a massive side thing. But do you remember when he was passing out like dick pics? And sending out dick pics? One of the names that he was going by was Carlos Danger. Carlos Danger. That is a fucking awesome name. It's like a porn star name. But he's sending that out as he's hitting on hitting on these random women. Carlos Danger. I love that name. McCabe waited until late October, just weeks before the election and roughly 3 weeks after they were discovered, to begin scrutinizing the messages, some of which were classified. Horowitz is trying to figure out whether McCabe or anyone else at the Bureau wanted to delay action on the emails until after the election, but has not come to any conclusions, the paper reports. He also wants to know who knew about Clinton's emails on Weiner's laptop, which were discovered in late September 2016, and when they learned about them. Essentially, when did you know and when did you know it? Or what did you know and when did you know it? Then FBI Director James Comey announced in late October that the Bureau was reopening the probe in Clinton's use of the private email server as Secretary of State in light of the Weiner discovery. Clinton backers slammed Comey at the time, saying that the 11th hour announcement hurt Clinton and helped Trump. Days later, Comey again shut down the probe and said that the emails had nothing to do with the case. McCabe defenders told the paper that there was nothing suspicious going on, that the FBI brass were just cautious about evaluating emails so close to the election. But pressure on the brass was mounting within the Bureau to move on the emails after it was disclosed that McCabe's wife, Jill, had received hundreds of thousands of dollars by a Virginia State Senate bid from a PAC connected with then-Governor Terry McAuliffe, a longtime Clinton crony. Are you honestly telling me this doesn't look a little weird? Like, does this fully pass the sniff test? Yeah, I don't think this passes the sniff test. And whether I think it passes the sniff test or not, it looks bad. It just looks bad on his face. Your wife, the person who's the target of your investigation, is getting money. I'm sorry. Your wife is getting money from the candidate that was against the target of that investigation. That looks a little weird. It looks like you have a tether in this. You have a dog in the hunt. Let's keep going. There's more. This is kind of my point. I don't think Republicans are crazy on this. Here's another one. And I think this one is even more damning. FBI agent Muller ousted. The FBI agent Muller ousted was behind two critical turning points in the Clinton and Trump-Russia investigations. Notice they're saying in both, not just one or the other, both. Meaning Peter Strzok's, and I may be pronouncing his name wrong, was instrumental in getting getting Comey to change the wording of the document in his report. And it was critical changes. It wasn't like a piecemeal change. The change went from something that had criminal charges associated with it to something that did not have criminal charges associated with it, essentially protecting Clinton from a perp walk. At the exact same token, he was also instrumental in getting this kind of Trump-Russia thing, meaning he had a role also in Trump and Russia. Later on, they found that exact same agent who was instrumental in both of these main turning points of both of these cases, sending out tweets against Donald Trump in favor of Hillary Clinton. This looks bad. This looks as if the intelligence community was being politicized. This looks bad. Let's read the story. The FBI agent Mueller ousted was behind two critical turning points in the Clinton and Russia investigations, Trump and Russia investigations. Peter Strzok, the counterintelligence veteran whom Special Counsel Mueller cut from his team late August, played a key role at critical junctures of the FBI's investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's use of the private email server, as well as into investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 election, CNN reported. As the deputy head of counterintelligence, Strzok was widely considered one of the most experienced investigators in his field at the FBI. He worked extensively on the Bureau's inquiry into the Clintons' use of the private email server to conduct government business before joining Mueller's team. CNN learned on Monday that it was Strzok's decision to edit key language in the memo that former FBI Director James Comey authored about the Bureau's assessment of Clinton's actions. The original draft of the memo that was created in May 2016 and turned over to the Senate Judiciary Committee early last month stated, "There is no evidence to support a conclusion that Secretary Clinton and others used the email server in a manner that was grossly negligent with respect to the handling of the classified information." Around June 2016, the memo's language was changed to say that Clinton's actions were extremely careless instead of grossly negligent. Though the news of the change in the language surfaced last month, documents turned over to the Senate Judiciary did not indicate at the time that it was Strzok who was responsible for the edit. Comey announced at a press conference in July 2016 that the Department of Justice would not file charges against Clinton because investigators did not have sufficient evidence to prove she intended to act illegally. Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary of Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in the handling of very sensitive, highly classified information, Comey said in 2016. There is evidence to support a conclusion that any reasonable person in President Clinton's position or in the position of those whom she was corresponding about the matter should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation, Comey added. Now, apparently, as of May 2016, then Director Comey and FBI officials believed the facts fit the gross negligence standard until later edits was made, Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley said in a letter to the FBI Christopher Wray. He also asked the FBI to elaborate on who was responsible for the change and the reasoning behind it. The language change in the original draft is significant, legal experts say, because gross negligence comes with possible criminal penalties. So understand what's being said. You have somebody who was in the tank for one of the parties, meaning Hillary Clinton. He was against one of the other members, meaning Donald Trump. Neither party has any claim to the edifice of government, meaning the bus driver doesn't own the bus. The bus driver can drive the bus, but the bus driver doesn't own the bus. Either campaign, meaning Clinton's campaign or Donald Trump's campaign, were vying for this particular seat, this particular bus. The point I'm getting at here is, if you're going to have these elements of government that are functioning at the behest of one of the parties in order to protect a member of that party, then you've just politicized one of the intelligence communities or the intelligence community. They changed the language on this. And the person who changed the language on this was in the tank for the person that he changed the language for, meaning the target of the investigation. He was supporting the target of the investigation. And pursuant to that support, changed the language in a way that kept her from being essentially perp-walked. Kept her from being perp-walked. Let's keep going this more, because this doesn't just end with that one. This is the other part. Strzok, the same person, authorized the FBI to launch the Russia investigation. The FBI launched this investigation into Russian election interference and possible collusion with the Trump campaign in July 2016. The same month, Comey announced that the Department of Justice would not bring charges against Clinton. According to CNN's report on Monday, Strzok was the FBI agent who signed off on officially opening the Bureau's investigation into Russia meddling. Strzok made headlines last August when it was reported that Mueller had removed him from the team of prosecutors handling the FBI Russia investigation. The Washington Post reported Saturday that while Strzok was working on the Clinton email investigation, he exchanged texts expressing anti-Trump sentiment with an FBI lawyer, Lisa Page, with whom the Post said he was engaged in an extramarital affair. At the time, Page worked with Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Oh, look at the circle jerk. Look at the circle jerk. Page and Stroix reportedly continued exchanging politically charged text messages through the 2016 campaign season. Stroix was subsequently removed from Mueller teams after the Inspector General began examining the messages. I would ask again, does this pass the sniff test? One guy who's working on the case is getting $500,000, or his wife is getting $500,000 from a political opponent of the person he's investigating. The other guy who was associated with the case was exchanging, I guess, hate mail about Donald Trump, while at the same token getting Hillary Clinton off of criminal charges while officially opening an investigation on Donald Trump, working with the exact same guy whose wife got $500,000. What am I missing? What am I missing? This is not even from Nunes releasing a memo. This is information that was already available and out to the public. What am I missing? This seems massively corrupt to me. At the very least, it seems like there's... Let me say it this way. It is perfectly true that Republicans have a dog in the hunt. Meaning, if they could find a way to deflect from any idea that, this Trump and Russia thing, they're going to find ways to deflect from Trump and Russia. They don't want their person dragged out of office, so they're going to do what they need to do in order to try to back up their guy. If that means attacking Mueller, they're going to attack Mueller. It's also true, however, that the FBI is being called a political hack, or at the very least was being used as a political hatchet job. And agents at the top tier of the FBI being used in this capacity, it looks as if they were going after one of the political opponents, meaning starting an investigation on one hand while at the same token subverting an investigation on the other hand. That's what it looks like. Now, if you were the FBI, would you be against releasing information showing that there were accusations of your corruption, or there were accusations with you behaving in this kind of politically charged manner? Then yeah, you also have a dog in the hunt in this case, and you also will probably be against that information in the same way police organizations are often against releasing data about how many people they've murdered. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. All of these things can be true, which is kind of the problem. And it's kind of the problem in trying to put your hands down on what's actual real. What is real, however, is the stuff that I've just said. Everything that I've said in this thing was reported widely in the news, in the media itself. Meaning, whether I think Republicans are hacks in this or not is kind of besides the point. What I've seen was that at the very least, there is a case to be made that people who are in the top tier echelon of the intelligence community was undermining investigations on one hand and starting investigations on the other. And they were doing this for politically motivated reasons. If Republicans are saying, we can demonstrate this, everything else be damned. They need to be able to demonstrate it. They need to have the latitude to be able to release the documents to be able to demonstrate it. And people can come to their own conclusions on whether or not the document does what they say the document does. Release the memo. Release the memo. It's a lot of wood to chop, but I wanted to go through the source itself so people can actually see what I'm looking at when I'm making this kind of determination. Release the memo. So, Gnome, you're not missing anything, JT. People are just misinformed or willfully blind. I think it's the willfully blind part. Like, a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, came over last night. Hadn't seen a guy in forever. And I remember, man, I swear, man, it's funny how people change. I remember there was a time where he voted Green Party, I voted Democrat. And I was like, how are you? It's like, why are you voting Green Party? What's the point of that vote? And you're wasting your vote and everything. Complete 180. I'm the person who's far to the left. And he's full into this Trump and Russia thing. And he's like, I mean, hey man, Donald Trump was working with Russia for this. Okay, how can you prove that? Well, I mean, Donald Trump said so-and-so. Yeah. But how can you prove that? How can you nail that down? Well, I mean, they bought Facebook ads. You're telling me about Facebook ads? Like, you're telling me about Trump and Russia, and the first thing you're talking about is Facebook and Twitter ads? They spent $100,000 on Twitter and Facebook, and you believe that that's your smoking gun collusion? Well, I mean, for the most part, yes. For the most part, yes. Well, we don't really have information on this. Then how do you know that this is taking place? It's like, Well, they're doing an investigation to get the information. I understand that. But you used the PP dossier in order to come up with a pretext for this. And the people who are involved in getting this stuff going in the first place had a dog in the hunt, had a political dog in the hunt. And it was very clear that they were in favor of one side as opposed to another. Even going so far as asking him, it's like, you understand McCabe is stepping down. Yes, I understand that. Why is McCabe stepping down? Well, his wife got a bunch of money from Terry McAuliffe. Do you think that that in any way looks a little bit corrupt? I mean, the idea that he's being paid off by a political hack person or by a political hack? Well, I mean, you know, it's Trump and Russia. Trump and Russia. It's nothing else matters. Everything boils down to Trump and Russia. And he would even be like, well, yeah, and I don't believe that that was the sole reason why she lost. Then why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? They're using this to take up all the air out of the room. That's the whole point of it. That's the entire reason for it. It does two main things. It ties Donald Trump's hands with regards to foreign policy to some degree. And it takes up political space. It's like, how can you get your agenda accomplished when you're running through this headwind of Trump and Russia? My issue with the Trump and Russia thing has more to do with the reasons why they're using Trump and Russia in the first place. You fail to reality shows. And instead of owning up to the fact that you failed to reality shows, instead of having an honest autopsy of why you failed to that reality shows, Democrats understand they're in a box. That box is pretty fundamental. They believe that they need massive amounts of cash to get elected. And they, in their minds, don't know where they're going to get that massive amounts of cash from. Meaning they're in a box. Meaning if their donors say, you're not going to get cash from us if you bring up income inequality. Well, it doesn't matter that we're at the greatest level of income inequality in the history. Just flat out in history. Doesn't matter. That still can't bring up, or it still can't come up as one of the topics of discussion. That would be the basic and most straightforward topic of discussion. Do you understand? They passed this gross tax bill. They're putting $1 trillion of debt on the backs of this country. And doing so to give plutocrats tax cuts. 80% of those gains are going to go to the top 1%. You would think that the argument that you would have for something like that, that the thing that separates the wheat from the chaff, the thing that goes for the jugular, is having this conversation about class. You have a shameless plutocrat in that office raping the public in order to give even more wealth to the top 1%. And the argument that they have is not on class, issues of class. It's not on income inequality. It's not on economics. It's on none of that stuff. Trump and Russia. Trump and Russia. They do that to take all the air out the room. That's my issue with it. Nothing else takes place. And there's another side effect to this, by the way. In fact, there's two side effects. One is not as pronounced as it was in the 50s and 60s. This kind of Cold War mentality. This red menace, red baiting that back in the 40s and 50s was used to kind of, well, in the 50s, not the 40s, but that was used to kind of block off what it means to be on the left. It's like, hey, you're looking a little pink, buddy. You're looking a little pink. You better fall back in line and get your ass back to the Democratic Party. Meaning anything that went beyond that particular party became somewhat suspect and was susceptible to being attacked under this idea of their some kind of Russian collaborators. They're reviving this exact same strategy. The idea being that maybe we can stem the tide on the left. Maybe we can create a bulwark for these other parties that are attacking us on the left. The problem with this is you don't have the majority of the country buying into this. But in the 40s and the 50s, you could get a chunk of the country to buy into this. A large majority of the country could say, okay, maybe there is something to this. Maybe there's a Cold War, etc. You don't have that uniformity. You have about 30% of the population that sticks with this belief. And these people are just Democrats. It's not having the expected effect, or it's not having the effect that it would have in the 50s or the 60s. Meaning, you're not getting the same bang for your buck that you got back during those times. It doesn't work. You don't have this kind of single focus of media where there are no other channels of media and everything else, where you can just cut off the level of debate and no. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't mean they're not trying it, but it doesn't work that way. Or at the very least, it doesn't have the effect that they had in the 50s. And the other part to this has to do with this idea of accountability or lack thereof. If the only thing we're talking about is Trump and Russia, we're not talking about our failures. We're not talking about how we lost 1,100 seats or how, we lost the reality shows and how the last president was so weak he couldn't even get his Supreme Court pick in. We're not having those conversations at all. What will happen is, and what I think they believe is going to happen, is in 2018 that they're going to have a wave election. And they're believing that the wave election is going to be sufficient enough to where they can make it through those 2 years without bringing up any of their foibles, any of their fuck-ups, any of their failures, any of their letdowns, any of their, not living up to any of their cave-ins. To be able to say, we're the resistance, #resistance, and we're against Donald Trump. That's who we are. That's our distinguishing thing. That's our distinguishing characteristic. We're against Donald Trump. If you hate Donald Trump, vote us. But this doesn't allow for any level of accountability. Meaning the reason that they failed so much in the first place doesn't get talked about. It doesn't get inspected. It doesn't even come up. Ultimately, you've been able to keep the conversation and the debate going purely between this thing of Donald Trump and Russia, and in no way have to change who you are as a party. The problem with the Unity Reform Commission is that the strength of the commission goes down the more Democrats believe that they're going to win in 2018. If they believe they're going to take the House and the Senate, Unity Reform what? Unity Reform what? What's that? What's that? What's that? There was a commission here? Oh, we don't remember there being a commission. We don't remember there being a commission. That commission is going to go away. The influence of that commission is completely and directly linked to whether or not they believe that they're going to be able to take Congress. If they believe that the public is crazy enough to put them back in office without them making any changes, then they're political actors. They're going to say, thank you, public, for putting us back in office. And no, we're not going to make any changes. And yeah, we're going to keep it business as usual since the public put us back in that office, going around with business as usual. So, yeah, all that. Rob Illinois, Jamal, why aren't you saying that the tax cuts are going to cause real inflation? Because I don't know if the tax cuts are going to cause inflation. I don't know if that's true. I mean, we've been pumping tons of money into the economy, and I have yet to see inflation associated with it. Not to mention, the plutocrats are going to put that money in their pockets. They're not going to spend that money. I mean, it's not... You have billions of dollars. You get a tax cut. That's great. You have another digit in your bank account. Your spending habits aren't going to change. It would be different if that money was being dumped into the bottom, meaning if the bottom 90% was getting this kind of massive tax cut, like significant tax cut, where that money was going to get dumped directly into the economy because a person, when they get a tax cut, they tend to spend more of the money that they get back, meaning if they spend like 110%, something to that effect of the money that they get back, because they're already running on a hamster wheel. They're already at their wits' end in that sense. It's like they're barely making ends meet under normal circumstances. So you get the opportunity to get a little bit more money back, and you're spending that money right away. You're dumping that money directly into the economy. If you give Jeff Bezos another $10 million, why is Jeff Bezos going to change his spending habits? Jeff Bezos has all the money in the world. It doesn't do anything. I don't think it's going to cause inflation. I don't think it's going to cause anything. I think they're going to cause additional digits in their bank account. I think it's going to inflate the stock market to that much more. I think it's going to allow for more money to be dumped in political campaigns. But inflation? No. That money would have to actually go towards doing something for there to actually be inflation. Brian Tan, also higher capital gains taxes have shown that people usually invest that money into their company rather than pay more in taxes. Yes. That's the other thing. Like higher taxes, it incentivizes people to not put that money in their pockets. It incentivizes them to actually just put the money back into the company. None of your business. JT chat room is one of the most accurate and learned chats on YouTube. Oh, thank you, none of your business. I appreciate that. I appreciate the shit out of that. Thank you. BB Hammer, article from Reprieve circulating about Trump drone kills 8 times Obama's turns out to be Soros BS. No sources or evidence to back that number up. I don't think that's Soros BS. Are you telling? Come on, BB. Are you telling me you don't believe that? So, one of the things that when Donald Trump first took office, one of the first few days in office, he had this kind of botched operation where all these kids were being killed. A few days in office after that, 100 and something people being murdered in a drone strike. Donald Trump taking the drone program and putting it back into the CIA so Donald Trump can obfuscate the number of kills and murders that's taking place in the drone program. Are you telling me that you honestly don't believe that Donald Trump would have more murders than the Obama administration? Of course he's going to have more murders than the Obama administration. He cares less. He cares less. 90% of the people in some of these cases that were being hit under Obama were civilians, were innocent. They were innocent human beings. Obama was creating terrorists based on his behavior in the globe, around the globe. Invading one country after the next, dropping bombs on one country after the next. He dropped 26 fucking thousand bombs on his last year in office. Imagine that number. Like, that number is mind-blowing. To think that you're dropping that many bombs and most of those people that you're hitting are fucking innocent. They're innocent. Are you telling me that Donald Trump is going to be more careful in this regard? Are you telling me that the guy who's been in that office, who has not given two shits about any other human being, is going to some degree care about human life in this way where he's going to be more careful? No, I don't think Donald Trump gives two shits about others people's lives. And if that means that he's going to drone strike and bomb and kill, then he's going to do that. It doesn't shock me in the least that he may have 8 times more murders than the previous administration. It doesn't shock me in the least, and it shouldn't shock you in the least. Gnome, there's no way he's caught up with drone kills. He must be behind Obama. Give it a year or two, he'll catch up. Yeah, I'm doubtful. I'm doubtful. I could fully believe that he's caught Obama just because he's... If you're less picky about who you kill, then yeah, you're gonna have more kills. If you're less picky, by definition, you're less picky. If you're putting this back into the CIA, then certainly you're putting it back into the CIA for a reason. You're not doing it for shits and giggles. You're doing it to obfuscate from the number of people that you're murdering, meaning you understand that you're going to be murdering a lot of people, and a lot of those people are going to be innocent civilians. I'm not shocked by that number in the least. I'm not shocked in the least. J. Scott, Trump was surpassed Obama on drone strikes, golfing, and deportations. He hasn't caught him on deportations yet. He hasn't caught him on deportations yet. But at some point, he's probably... BB Hammer, Trump isn't a problem, the system is. Yes, that I agree with you on, BB Hammer. That I agree with you on. That I agree. We're in perfect agreement on this one. We're in perfect agreement on that one. Trump is a symptom. Agreed. Agreed. Golfing is a category. Yes, golfing is a category, not your business. Golfing is a category. Trump is supporting fewer than Obama. So a friend of mine, we were talking about that yesterday too. I was kind of making the point to him that Trump is incompetent. Like, whatever you want to think of him, I think he's incompetent. So between somebody who's a better manager, then yeah, he's probably going to have more deportations. He's somewhat of a better manager. Doesn't mean that he's not going to catch Obama. No, that doesn't mean he's not going to catch Obama if he's in office a little bit longer. And in a weird way, Donald Trump may have less than Obama because he probably got more resistance than Obama. Like, it's one of those things, like, you've heard me make the argument that like you get political cover by going against your base. So if you're a Democrat can pass NAFTA because, well, Democrat is doing this. This guy is supposed to be on the left. So if he's passing NAFTA, if he's passing criminal justice reform, quote-unquote reform, if he's destroying welfare, if he's doing those things, then it must be okay because he's on the left. If a Republican tried to do it, a Republican would get opposition for something like that. But a Democrat can do it. Obama can enshrine those tax cuts that Bush put into law because he's a Democrat. A Democrat can do it. Hillary Clinton wouldn't have gotten anywhere near as much opposition to the tax cuts if she was president and she was trying to put those things through. So it's like the opposition of sorts, or taking the opposite polarity, allows a certain more political latitude than you would get under normal circumstances. If that makes sense. I say that to say that it's possible that the reason why Obama had more deportations is because he got less resistance in regards to those deportations. Like, it's no drama Obama. I mean, the guy's black. I mean, he's not going to be deporting people and he's black, right? It's not going to do that. It's not going to have one darky deporting another darky. And so he doesn't get that push against him. He doesn't get the pressure against him. So for him, if he's doing it, it must be okay. He doesn't get the political, he gets political latitude. Trump comes in office saying Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. Man, shit, man. You started your campaign off saying the most racist shit I've ever heard a president say. And so, yeah, anything that you do is going to be put through the confines of that lens. Meaning when people are looking at you, even people who may not care one way or the other about you, will look at the policy and will probably take the perspective that this particular policy is somewhat racist. He's doing these things for racist reasons. Not he's doing these things for political reasons. There's a difference in those things, if that makes sense. Obama kicking out 3 million Hispanics or 3 million immigrants from the country. Well, that's put purely through political lens, even though he was more efficient at it than Donald Trump. I hope that makes sense. It's like this kind of reversing of polarity gives you more political latitude to act or to behave. So, yeah. Brian Tan, Garno, 432% means that over the years of drone strikes by Trump in 1 year. Over years of drone strikes by Trump in 1 year. Yeah. But damn it, all that killing and starvation is so wrong. Hoodie Woman, Louisiana. Yes, it is wrong. I mean, think of what's been going on in Yemen. Think of what's been going on in Yemen. I was telling... He asked me whether I watch CNN. And I told him I tried to avoid CNN like the plague. I was trying to make the point to him that they have a bias. That mainstream media has a fundamental bias. And it's a bias that they all agree on. So it seems as if it's completely invisible if you're not necessarily paying attention to the bias. He says, what is that bias? I said, that bias is whatever the United States does, by extension, is right. Meaning, if the United States is doing something, from the media standpoint, we may fuck up, we may do it poorly, we may be incompetent in our behavior, but we're not doing it for bad reasons. So us going into Libya was purely for humanitarian reasons. It didn't have anything to do with the oil. It didn't have anything to do with Gaddafi trying to have this pan-African currency. It had everything to do with the humanitarian crisis. It's coded a particular way, even though the objectives are something fundamentally different. CNN's bias, particularly with regards to issues of war, is fundamentally they're on board for it. So they would have this conversation about Yemen, and he would say, well, I heard about the Yemen thing on the news. It's like, but you understand that the United States is working with Saudi Arabia in order to do that. Oh, I didn't know that. That's their bias. The fact that they're leaving out that fundamental kernel of information that we've been working with Saudi Arabia over the course of the last, 70, 80, 90 years, dealing with this relationship between oil for protection. And we have stood by them, regardless of how batshit crazy, regardless how rabid, regardless how disgusting they've been on human rights, regardless of them exploiting terrorism all throughout their region of the world. We've stood by them regardless. Even in starving Yemenis, even in the murdering Yemenis, and even when there's a massive cholera epidemic right now in Yemen based on the behavior of the United States and Saudi Arabia in that country. We do bad things. We do bad things. And we don't do them for humanitarian reasons. We don't do them, the media puts this shit out as if we're doing it for good. We do things for bad reasons. When Rex Tillerson, that memo that was released recently where it was explaining that we don't really care about human rights. We don't care about any of that stuff. That U.S. policy boils down to who's our friends and who's not. And if you're our friends, we'll look over the shit that you do. If you're not, we will use this issue of human rights as something that club you over the head with. So countries that they perceive as enemies like North Korea or Iran, well, you hit them over the head with human rights. Forget the fact that you have cops murdering civilians in the street. Forget the fact you have cops stealing property from civilians. Forget the fact that you have more people in your prisons than anywhere else in the world in spades. Forget the fact that you have more cops or government forces murdering people in the streets, shooting people in the face, and getting off with it than anywhere else in the world. The United States will still, with a straight face, say that your country is behaving poorly on human rights. It's amazingly shameless. But that is our policy. It is our policy. Who is Jared Beck? Sounds like a hack. Jared Beck is not a hack. Jared Beck was supposed to be here tonight. Jared Beck is the guy who filed the DNC fraud lawsuit. I have an interview with him on Friday. I fucked up the dates. And I think I know what took place, though. Originally, when I spoke to him, I asked him if he wanted to do it on Wednesday. It ended up being we were supposed to do it on Friday, but I still had in my head that we were supposed to be doing it on Wednesday. So when I hit him up today, saying, "Hey, you ready to do an interview at 6 p.m.?" He's like, "Dude, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And the man is not a hack. He's fucking awesome. He took the DNC to court, essentially saying, "You guys have committed fraud. You said that you were having a fair and open process, and this process was anything but fair, and this process was anything but open." Would people have donated to Bernie Sanders if they were told the truth? Meaning, if they were told that the party was colluding in order to work towards getting their particular person to exceed the primaries, whether that was kicking people off the rolls illegally, whether that was meaning stealing the vote in Nevada, whether that meaning closing polling locations, whatever that entailed, whether that entailed Clinton funneling money around or laundering money, this kind of breaking federal finance laws, whatever that entailed, if they weren't being transparent, and if they told you that they were lying to you, and this was not a fair process, would you have donated to Bernie Sanders? And I think that's a fair question. Would Bernie Sanders have gotten $200 million if the people were told, "Hey, by the way, they're going to cheat you in this process"? The answer, of course, is no. Nobody in their right mind is donating to Bernie Sanders if they're told the truth that they were being he was going to be cheated. The point of the lawsuit was kind of making this point of, well, you've committed fraud. You may be a corporation, meaning you can choose whoever you want to choose in regards to candidate. You can pluck that candidate in the back room with one catch. If you're telling me that I'm involved in something and I'm buying a product, and you're telling me that that product has certain conditions or certain features associated with the product, and I find out that you've lied to me, then you've just sold me a lemon. I've given you money under false pretenses. And that's the bulk of the case. All of these people gave money believing that it was going to be a fair process because they were told by the bylaws and by these grinning idiots, one after the other, that this was a fair and impartial process. We found out that it was not a fair and impartial process. And because it wasn't a fair and impartial process, and we gave all of this money, do you believe that those people should get their money back? Yes. You cheated and defrauded millions of dollars from millions of people. At the very least, those people should get their money back. So, yeah. I like Jerry Beck. I think he's awesome. Gnome, the fraud lawsuit is one of the most important actions going on today. Agreed. Citizens need to start using the parties to get redress. There is no redress at the polls. I think you're meaning using the judicial system, and I agree with you. I agree with you. Lorms, Dax Jacobs not being in our right mind is our charm. That's funny. Jay Scott, Bobby Jindal laughing my ass off. He fell from GOP grace quickly. I haven't heard anything about Bobby Jindal in years. So yeah, he fell off the fucking radar. Linda Hauserman. I love Max Blumenthal, period. I like Max Blumenthal too. He recently brought up how Israel played a role in the whole so-called Russia narrative. Barbara Marissa, the lawsuit should have been against Sanders, the actual fraudster. I knew Bob was in there somewhere. Well, look, he will be here on Friday. You can ask him about whether that lawsuit should have been against Bernie Sanders. That's a fair question. That's a fair question. Mike the Russian bot. Jindal wasn't crazy enough. Is that what it was? He wasn't batshit crazy enough for the party? That's funny. Okay, thank you for the nice chat. It's always really enlightening just to listen now, Lisa Hauserman. Yes, sue Bernie. He cheated us, BB Hammer. Uh-oh. So I did something, and I think I saw where she said she may do this. I had a conversation with Sane Progressive, and I sent her an interview request, and I essentially made the point to her that I have people on my channel who subscribe to two views that I hold. Well, not two views that I hold, but two views. And I think they need a voice of opposition. And what I mean by that is, I've always said that if Sanders ran again, Sanders has my full throated support. So I have another faction that doesn't believe that. And not just doesn't believe that, it's completely against me on this. I tried to think of who else was in the camp. Like, who's the champion of this? Like, who's the champion person that goes to, that gets into the arena to go against this idea of Sanders running in office or running for office as president again? Sane. She's the first person I thought of. I was like, hey, my audience would probably love to hear a conversation between you and I about this thing about Bernie Sanders. Now, for her thing, she was more so like, yeah, I've kind of moved on from the Sanders thing. I'm kind of into this camp of wanting more holistic change, meaning that this isn't something that, essentially, she moved on beyond the Sanders thing. But I think I've seen somewhere she may do this, so I'm going to see what she says. I'm not going to push her on it because I know she was having family issues. But this is kind of my point. So the Bob Ramirez's, the BB Hammers, the Bernie cheated us type thing, I think she gives voice to that probably better than anybody else that I think I've heard give voice to. I don't necessarily want to have somebody who's Washington Generals, if that makes sense. It's like you bring somebody on and the person folds the moment that you poke them. I want the champion for that particular point of view, and she was the champion for that particular point of view. So, Jamal, what are your feelings about the Russian baiting during last night's response? I hate the Russian baiting. I hate it. I don't like it. I'm not on board for I'm not on board for the Russian baiting thing. Like I understand he's playing politics. I don't like this particular brand of politics. He's working with Democrats, and I'm working with Democrats, particularly in this particular gross way. It's slightly disturbing. I'll put it that way. It's slightly disturbing. Either you show something of the Russia thing or not. Screaming about Trump and Russia and making yourself hostile towards another nuclear power nation is problematic at best. Of all the issues that avail us, Russia is not one of those main issues. Our issues are more domestic and internal. To treat dyslexia. That's awesome. My wife gave $2 to treat dyslexia. She does that to remind me of essentially saying, yeah, hoodie woman, that's true. Yeah, I think she does this to remind me to say stuff like, guys, I appreciate your support for the channel, etc., etc. It's like support through Patreon, support through Super Cash, and I appreciate all support that you guys give. It's my reminder this way. Unusual ally. Monquissimo, that was rough, but it was one of the issues he mentioned I didn't agree with. Why, I don't know if he is naive or believes what mainstream media says, or he's trying to be a good soldier propagandist. Unlike Layale, I don't know either, man. Like, I don't know if it's we need to take up all the air in the room by any politically way that's possible, so we're going to use Trump and Russia to take up the air in the room as a way of attacking him, essentially being a good soldier. I don't know if he just thinks this is a good political strategy to say we need to tie Donald Trump's hands, and anything that we can use to make a headwind, we're going to use to make a headwind, whether there's reality to it or not. Or I don't know if he just believes it. But I'm not going to agree with everything that everyone does. And yeah, I'm not going to agree with everything everyone does. I damn sure don't agree with that one. Felix, the article I linked alleges the Dutch spies caught the Russian hacking on tape. I would pay to see this tape, but it's not available to the public. Yeah, then it doesn't exist. I mean, it doesn't exist. It's like the United States is investigating some of everything, meaning the NSA is looking at all of these communications, looking at all of the communications that are coming into and out of the country. We're supposed to believe that they're moderately confident about this kind of hacking thing, this Russian hacking thing. There's just problems with the story. And it's more likely, between those things, I honestly believe it's more likely that it's a leak, not necessarily a hack. That this kind of Russian hack narrative came up on the day that Hillary Clinton lost the election. And she didn't want to own up to the fact that she lost the election. And she pushed for this narrative of Trump and Russia. The narrative stuck. If they had something, I just have this belief they would have released it. I don't think that for as many people hate this guy, and for all of these organizations that have been vying for his head, going so far as to plant these stories in the news that have found out, like a few days later that the story wasn't accurate. They've been going for his head. They're trying to find something and anything that they can tag onto him to try to justify screaming a year and a half about Trump and Russia and not having anything to show for it. If they had something like that, they would have shown it. If they had it, they would have shown it. I don't think they have it. I honestly don't think they have it. They can allege all they want. Essentially a bunch of people in the shadows pointing fingers. Well, I need to know who that person is from the shadows who's pointing that finger. The Trump-Russia thing was discussed long before the election because it was her vulnerability. Dax Jacobson, the hacking thing came from the report that they had over RT spending money to show other viewpoints. Well, it wasn't just that. I mean, the Trump dossier was one of the things that they were using as a precursor for or as a justification for it. Essentially saying, we're using this fantastic dossier that makes these amazing claims as a justification in order to open up an investigation into Donald Trump's colluding with Russia. Looking at his contacts and opening up FISA warrants, unmasking certain people in his campaign, knowing full well that they were unmasking people in his campaign. It looks to me as if they created this idea of Trump and Russia in order to use the intelligence community to spy on one of the campaigns. That's what it looks like. It looks like a political hack job to me. I mean, this is why I say release the memo. Release the memo. If they have something that's trying to clear Trump's name, they should release the memo and clear his name. But I think that's both ways. I think that goes in both ways. All right, guys, it's been an hour. Guys, I want to thank you all for showing up. I am going to have a interview by Holly Siegler on her channel tomorrow. I need to see what time that interview is going to be, but supposedly we have one coming up on Thursday. I have another interview with, oh, Jesus Christ, his name left me. With Jared Beck, the DNC fraud lawsuit, on Friday at 6 p.m. That one is going to be 6 p.m. Eastern. I have another interview coming up with Roxanne Meadows from the Venus Project. Man, you have no idea how much I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to all these, but I am especially looking forward to that one. I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet Jack Fresco before Jack Fresco passed. It's like a year too late in regards to getting my channel up and running enough where I would have had the opportunity. But at the very least, I get to talk to Roxanne. And she seems to be cool people. And she's keeping up the legacy of the Venus Project. So I'm mentally looking forward to it. Mentally looking forward to it. Huge congratulations on the interviews. Aw, thanks, Felix. I'm trying to do, I'm trying to organize the channel a little bit better. Like, I'm trying to organize the patron things, creating actual tiers in regards to patron. I'm trying to have the show at a specific time every day. Yeah, I'm trying to organize the channel. I'm trying to make this a little bit more robust in regards to having it as a, if not necessarily a full-time position, at the very least, something that can pay for itself. Let's say it that way. Let's say it that way. So, I'm going to end it here. Guys, I appreciate all the support that you guys give to the channel. Whether that's a like, whether that's a donation on Patreon, whether that's a donation in Super Cash. And so I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to say thank you for all of your support. Welcome to all of the new subscribers. And feel free to like or write or share. Thanks, guys. You all have a good night.